G'day everyone, welcome one and all back to another edition of Guvs Hero Review videos, in which today we are going to be checking out another of the rock band heroes. Specifically, we're going to take a look at the legendary 5-star blue hero, Mayhem, the Growling Frontman. Now, Mayhem is available, as we've seen just there, from the Battle of the Bands portal, which comes around once every 12 weeks. It sits in an alternating slot on a 4-week rotation with 2 other events, specifically the Mercenary and Zombie events. So what it means is once a month, a 30-stage event appears, and the 30-stage events, there's the Mercenary, Zombie, and Battle of the Bands. So we come around once every 12 weeks. Mayhem himself was part of a second batch of heroes that was added into the rock band family, roughly 9 months after the event's original conception in August 2022. So Mayhem came in about March 2023 was when he was added to the game. The portal itself that you're summoning from, there are 1.2% chance odds to gain a event hero. There are 9 heroes in total in this event at the moment. That number will probably increase as more heroes come in over time, but for now there's 9 of them. So what that means is if you were to go to this portal and do 100 summons in this portal, you would have, over those 100 summons, a 70.01% probability of gaining an event hero, any of them, but only a 12.5% probability of getting a specific event legendary hero. With, again, that number will drop off as more heroes are added to the portal. We'll flip across and we can take a look at the artwork real quick. So here we see Mayhem's artwork. So thank you very much, Swifty and Grimlock, for passing this one along. But this here is Mayhem's artwork. So here's titled the Growling Frontman. So he's obviously got the microphone and he's growling some kind of rock metal, death metal, whatever into that microphone. You got some kind of Kiss vibes going on with just like the face makeup that he's got, or face paint rather, whatever we want to call it. But yeah, that's his artwork. It's pretty cool. I actually do like his artwork, genuinely. I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's his artwork. Feel free to pause it if you wish, but otherwise, let's jump back across and we can have a look at a bit more of his card real quick. So, where is he? There he is. So, Mayhem, along with all of the rest of these heroes, they are part of the rock band family, which means he does gain armor at the start of each enemy wave automatically, and that amount of armor is equivalent to 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30% of his max HP, depending on how many of the rock band family members are in the battle. So if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 unique rock band family members in the battle, they gain a different amount of HP. Notably, it does have to be unique heroes. It can't be 2 copies of Mayhem. It's got to be 2 different heroes, like combining him with Warlock or with Zigzag as 2 different examples. I will make a note as well, even though it says enemy wave, the start of the battle does actually constitute a wave. So in raids or war attacks or war machines, when you initiate the battle, Mayhem and all the rest of them, they will gain the initial amount of armor at the very least. The Rock Band family members also gain a bonus when you use them during the Rock Band event. Specifically, they gain a bonus attack and defense. So they gain +4, 8, 12, 16, or 20% attack and defense if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 unique Rock Band family members in your team. So again, that only applies during the Rock Band event. It doesn't occur at any other time in the game, just the Rock Band family, the Rock Band event stages. In terms of his personal stats, we can see Mayhem comes out with 704 attack, 795 defense, and 1,483 HP. There is a little bit of a skew going on there. We can see that his attack stat is a little bit reduced and his defense stat is a bit inflated. So he's got a little bit of a skew there going from the attack stat towards the defense. It's not massive, but it is there at the end of the day. The other thing to note at this point as well is his power is set to 728, which is a little bit reduced compared to some of the most recent heroes added to the game. So Topaz comes in with 742, but he is a step up on some of the older heroes. So you look at some of the original Rock Band family members and they're like 712, 713 kind of power. So all power is it's a representation of a hero's base stat distribution. So more power means they've got more stats to distribute amongst attack, defense, and HP at the end of the day. In terms of his speed, Mayhem comes out as having 55 speed as his allocated thing, or average charge, and it requires 10 tiles to charge. So essentially, that's 5 ghosted tiles. The speed break happens at speed 58, so that's a +3 speed improvement, which you can do using any of the blue speed guns in game. There's 2 5-star guns. You've got the Regalizer Magnum and the Ice Breath Saw. Both of those are going to give you a +9 speed improvement, but there is also... actually, no, there's no other options. That's just those 2. The double speed break happens at speed 65, so it needs a +10 speed improvement. You can't do that using just the weapons alone, but if you do combine the +9 speed gun, so the Ice Breath Saw or Regalizer Magnum, with the 2% class node that he has at +8, you will actually get the double speed break. So we'll go from 10 tiles down to just 8 tiles to charge, which is a pretty good speed improvement on that front. I mentioned it a couple times there. He is a member of the Recon class, which means that he is granted the chance to evade incoming damage from enemy special skills, and will gain a +20% charge for each successful evasion. So I generally do actually like this talent. I think it's quite a good talent. It will grant him the opportunity to avoid damage and gain free charge. Essentially. The real downside, and the only downside of it obviously, is that he will still take any ailments that are attached to the special skill. It only evades the damage cut. You still take as well like charge cuts and all of that sort of thing as well. By way of an actual emblem path, I would personally, for Mayhem, go a defense and HP route. The reason for that is just because he is a taunt hero, so you want added survival. So more defense and more HP means that you're going to generate more survival to actually use that taunt effect. So ignore the fact that that is Dark Skull. What this would look like is at each node, we're going to pick up defense and HP points. So we've got defense and HP on the first 2. This side, we are going to split and go the speed route, because as I said, the speed node will allow you to double break him down to 8 tiles from 10, which is really great. But otherwise, we are just going to continue going down and picking up defense and HP points. You can go to +19 because it is a defense node. You can also stop a little bit earlier if you wish, but defense will gain him a little bit more use there as well. So that's the path that I would recommend following for Mayhem. You can make an argument to go a hybrid route, so maybe picking up some attack nodes as well as some of the defense points. So all that means is that at each point, we can either choose and go full-blown defense and HP like we saw on that first one, or a hybrid path would be to pick up both the nodes which have got attack and a defensive stat on each one. And the reason for doing that is it will basically improve his damage output while still giving him added survival. Now, admittedly, it's not quite as much survival as if you went the full-blown defense and HP route, but it does still gain him some usefulness. So this is sort of an attack/hybrid path that you might want to follow for Mayhem if you so choose. Heading back to his card real quick, and we'll take a look at the rest of what's written on there. So the next part that we'll talk about is his passive, or his stack. It is something that is unique only to the Rock Band family members. No other heroes or hero groups actually have passives. In the case of Mayhem, his passive ability is to apply +1 healing increase stack to all allies at the end of each turn. Each of those stacks is worth +1% healing that is received to a maximum of 20 stacks on any given hero. Stacks are, by way of explanation, completely and wholly separate to buffs and ailments. The only way to actually negate a positive stack is with their negative version. So specifically for Mayhem, because he creates a positive healing stack, the only way to reverse that is with a negative healing stack. So specifically, Warlock is the only hero at this point in time that can do that reversion. And similarly, the only way to reverse Warlock's negative healing stack is with Mayhem's positive healing stack. So I'll discuss this a little bit more further down in the review, because we do touch on it at greater detail later on. Moving on, we can check out his special skill, which is titled Guttural Roar, and at level 10 skill and 55 charge speed, it will deal 305% damage to the target and nearby enemies. It will apply a +48% defense against green buff to the caster and nearby allies for 3 turns. it will provide the caster and nearby allies with +4 stacks, with each stack doing +1% increased healing. And finally, down the very bottom there, it will apply the Taunt buff to the caster for 3 turns, preventing enemy heroes from using their special skills on his allies for 3 turns. So, couple bits going on in there. A bit of a wide-ranging set of skills. We've got both support effects and damage effects, but we're going to break each of them apart as always. So we'll start with the damage component. So, as always, damage is reasonably easy to calculate, but it's got so much variability in it that I compare heroes instead based on their attack power, which is analogous to their damage output in the end. Now, attack power is just the hero's attack stat, 704, multiplied by the percentage in their skill, which in the case of Mayhem here, we can see that he comes out with an attack power of 2,147. Now, normalizing that with their hero's speed, we get down to an attack power per tile of 215 per enemy. So, being a target and nearby, Mayhem is going to deal 215 attack power per tile to 3 enemies. And that ranks him, as you see there, number 6 of the blue DOA 3 hitters in the game. There's 13 options, so he is in the upper half, which is really good. His damage is quite substantially behind Fungi Beats, who's just absolutely insane, but it's reasonably in tune with the rest of the upper end of the spectrum. So you've got the next best there is Taunt at 229, and then 226 on Variant Banshee, and then a nice little group at 215 to 218 we see in the middle, and then it drops off down towards the bottom. You know, Logan is there at 133, almost 100 points behind where Mayhem is at. So quite a range of damage dealers. If we were to have a look at it compared to all of the DOA 3 hitters in the game, you know, there are quite a lot of them. There are 60 DOA 3 hitters across all elements. Mayhem actually comes out as being number 16 of the 60 options. So very much in the upper end of it, just actually outside the top quartile. So yeah, quite a good DOA 3 hitter by the general standards. The next part of his skill is the defense against green. So the caster and nearby allies get plus 48% defense against green for the next 3 turns. So it is a defense buff, but it only applies to green sources of damage. So green tiles, green hero skills, green slash attacks, and minions on green heroes. It doesn't affect any damage coming from any other source. It is only when it's attributed to a green hero. I will also point out it also doesn't apply to green heroes DOT. So someone that might generate poison or bleed or something like that. Because it's not specifically at that time being dealt by a green hero, it's being dealt by the ailment, it doesn't count. So yeah, realistically, it's only affecting one of the 5 elements or sources of damage in the game. Defense buff is also worth pointing out. It's not actually a damage reduction. So even though it says 48% defense buff, the actual damage reduction is only 41%. So it is still quite a good damage reduction. It's just under half. The damage is dealt to the heroes from the green sources. But yeah, it's not a straight up damage reduction, even though it's like for like percentages. Moving on to discussing some of the other things in there, 48% is quite unusual. Pretty much every other hero that has this effect is plus 94% in the magnitude. So I don't really know why Mayhem is only at 48%, because there are other heroes that do 94% to all allies or nearby allies. You just look at Jack or Variant Hairwear. So I don't really get it. I feel like it might have been a mistake, or they meant it to be some other buff, but just didn't change it. I don't know, whatever the reason. It's, yeah, a little bit reduced. So generally speaking, on this skill in general terms, I don't find it to be very useful. As I've sort of insinuated, it is only affecting 20% of the damage in the game. You've got 4 other elements that are still dealing the same amount of damage. And when you look at it in its effect, it's only blocking green damage against a blue hero. So green damage on Mayhem is strong damage. Strong damage doubles the damage output. So by reducing it by 40%, you basically just bring it back down or to pre-strong color damage, which is effectively just a neutral tile. So it's quite minimal in its impact even then. It doesn't actually like neuter the damage and completely remove it from existence. Bearing in mind as well, Mayhem is quite reduced in his effectiveness of this compared to the other instances of it in the game. Everyone else is doing 94% defense improvement, which is just under a 60% damage reduction. By comparison, Mayhem is only 48%, so he's only the 41% damage reduction. So yeah, quite limited in that regard as well. I'm going to skip down to the Taunt, and then I'll come back to the stack. So the last part of his skill is the Taunt. So the caster gets Taunt that prevents enemies from using special skills on the caster's allies for 3 turns. So Taunt is amazing. There's no real way around that. There are not very many Taunt heroes in the game, and when you use a Taunt hero with good timing, it can be absolutely devastating to the enemy hero's special skills, because essentially what it does is it blocks the enemies from dealing damage to any other hero other than the Taunter. So in the case of snipers and multi-hitters, there's not really any effect other than it just protects your allies and takes all of that damage onto the Taunt hero. But with AoE effects, such as DOA 3 or DOA 5 hitters, it actually reduces the damage that those heroes do, because you're now unable to hit nearby allies. You're unable to hit all enemies. It is just that one hero. So it goes from being a target 5 to a hit 1. So it's a 80% reduction in the damage output from an AoE 5. So Taunt is incredibly good. Like incredibly good. Very useful effect to use in the game. The downside for Mayhem, and there is a downside, is that generally speaking, because Taunt heroes are redirecting damage onto themselves, in order to function well as a Taunt hero, they need some kind of counter or some way of reversing or recovering or dealing with the additional damage that they are taking. So really great Taunt heroes, they will either heal themselves or generate armor for themselves, or they have some way of bouncing back or reflecting that damage. Like, you look at Variant Face-Off, he's got counterattack. So yes, he forces damage onto himself, but he deals damage back. You've got Panzer and Shuffle. They take damage onto themselves, but they generate armor for themselves. So they reduce the amount of damage that they take. Mayhem, he doesn't really have that. He's just got slightly bulkier stats, and he's also got the recon talent, which kind of works for him as well. But it's not... I don't feel like it's on the same level of effective Taunt as some of the other heroes, because he's got no way of recovering from the damage that he's taking. More generally speaking, 3 turns, normal duration. There's nothing really to say about that. And one final thing I will point out is a really great combination for Taunt is with counterattack. Because essentially what you're doing there is you force the enemy heroes to target the counterattack, which is very useful for multi-hitters and snipers, because normally counterattack is only like caster and nearby, and there's a 40% chance that they're not going to hit the counterattack. But with the Taunt active and the counterattack active at the same time, you can forcibly make that sniper or that multi-hitter direct all of their damage straight onto the counterattack and effectively can kill them in one shot. So very useful combination. Absolutely hilarious to watch. It's one of my favorite things to watch in the game, is an enemy hero absolutely nuke themselves on counterattack. Like, there's nothing else that brings me much more joy than that. So yeah. Moving on, final part of his skill is the stack. So the increased healing. So when he fires his special skill, he will generate 4 additional stacks for the caster and nearby allies, with each stack giving plus 1% increased direct healing per stack up to a maximum of 20 stacks. I don't like this stack. Straight up. I find, in general, additional healing to be a very lackluster effect. I don't ever see it playing any impact on a battle, virtually at all. Mainly because of the magnitude. So let's be real, 1% ain't going to make jack of a difference in like 999 out of 1,000 instances. It's not going to do anything. And if we take a look at how this plays out, Mayhem himself, no healing. There's no healing in his skill, right? If he had some healing or he somehow synergized with himself, it might be better, but Mayhem doesn't have healing. So what this means is that you have to bring another healer along, which you're probably going to do. It's not the end of the world. So let's say, for example's sake, we bring Doodle. Doodle is a blue hero. He's got good synergy there because he's a blue hero. You create a blue stack, you're doing extra damage. Mayhem, 4 turns into the battle, you've got enough tiles, you charge a skill, you fire him off. So that gives you 8% healing stack on Mayhem. 4 from each turn and 4 from casting the skill. When you fire Doodle's special skill, right, you receive, wait for it, 31 extra health. That's it. 2% additional healing. 2% of his health is additional because of his high base HP stat. Even at the absolute maximum stack that you can kick out from his effect, that plus 20% additional healing, it is only 5% of Mayhem's base HP as additional healing. So, yeah, generally, it's better than nothing, all right? We'll give it that. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to make much of a difference in the battle. If Mayhem generated healing as part of his special skill, like he did a heal over time for himself and nearby allies, sure, absolutely, go for it. But it just doesn't make sense to me because Mayhem himself and the Rock Band family at large, they don't actually generate healing in most of the heroes' cases. Sorry, from the family bonus. Yes, there is Roxy. Yes, there is, not Jolt, the other one, Melody. I'm pretty sure they both generate healing. But yeah, I just don't like it. I'm sorry. I like Mayhem. I've grown on Mayhem more than I used to, but I still just don't like this stack at all. So yeah, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. So overall, for Mayhem, I do think he is a good hero. He still can be improved, don't get me wrong. I find some of the elements in his skill to be lackluster and just missing. Like, for example, his defense buff. It's only protecting against green damage, and it's only 48% defense improvement. Now, both of those things to me are lacking. If it was a generic defense buff, gaining 44% defense against, like, anything, like just 44% increased defense, then you're blocking the damage, like you're reducing all the damage that comes his way, rather than just green. So, yeah, that's like one of the things I really find lacking on him is that green defense buff. The other thing that I really wish that Mayhem had was some form of healing for himself and or near allies, but at the very least for himself. Maybe even if it was something as simple as getting 225 HP over 3 turns, that would synergize nicely with his stack, and it would also enhance his effectiveness as a taunt hero. Because as it is right now, Mayhem forces damage onto himself, but cannot recover from it. And that is where he really differs from all of the other really great 5-star taunt heroes. You've got, well, I mean, they're not necessarily all great, but it differs from them as taunt heroes. Shuffle generates armor for herself instantaneously and has the sentry talent. Panzer generates armor for herself over 2 turns and has the engineer talent. Mayhem, nothing. And that's where I find, as a taunt hero, Mayhem is probably most lacking in the taunt sphere. But in saying that, you know, ignoring that fact, Mayhem, or even factoring in that, Mayhem is still actually a really pretty good quality hero, right? He's got Taunt, which is great. It's always useful and it's always beneficial, particularly in attacking situations. His speed, it is a really good standpoint for him compared to other taunt heroes, because the majority of other taunters in the game are slow speed, but he is on the upper end, and he can double break as well, which cannot be understated. He can double break to effectively a fast speed hero. Right, and then you chuck on top of that, he actually has decent damage output, which is one of the biggest downfalls to Panzer. Panzer has very small amount of damage, and Shuffle has none. But Mayhem, he's generating a decent amount of damage as well. So overall, where does that leave him in terms of his grading? Well, I'm going to give Mayhem a B+ for war and raid attacks. I do think that he is a pretty decent hero. He's got a lot of uses in attack between his damage and the taunt. It is a very good combination of effects. So I'm going to give him a B+ there. On the War Machine side of things, I'm going to give him a C+. I don't think he is going to be a great War Machine hero, but he's also not a bad one either by any stretch. The main benefit, though, is the taunt, because the War Machines typically have a lot of damage in their skill, and he reduces that impact zone. On the eventing, I'm going to give him a B-. For eventing, he is a DOA 3 hitter. He's got decent damage, but you can't get past the fact that DOA 3, as good as they are, they still aren't as good as multi-hitters. And blue is really lacking as well in the other key effects to be a really great eventing class, compared to something like red or yellow as two different colors. In the defense side of things, I'm going to give him a B grade for war and raid defenses. I'd say his best position is flank, to sit behind a chunky tank. Taunt is really quite annoying when it triggers in the middle of a battle because it really interrupts your battle flow. You either wait the taunt out or you just acknowledge the fact that you're not going to get full benefit of your damage. So yeah, flank is probably where I'd put him on a defense team at a B grade. In our 3 tournament spheres, so we've got the Bloody Battle tournament, so I'm going to give him a B grade for attack and a B grade for Bloody Battle defense. I do think he's quite useful here. He doesn't, like most of the other taunt heroes, he doesn't drop away because he never had healing to start with, so I'm going to leave him at a B grade for attack and defense there. On the buff booster side of things, I'm going to give him a B+ on attack and a B+ on defense. Does generate 1 buff for himself and nearby allies, so there is a little bit of synergy there with the tournament rule set, although not substantial. Finally, in the last one, we've got charge attack. So he does go from 55 up to 65 speed. So there is a speed improvement. So I'm going to give him a slight grading increase. So I'm going to give him an A- for charge tournament attack and an A- for charge tournament defense, because I do think that taunt becomes inordinately more annoying on defense in charge tournament than in general raid. So overall, that ranks him as being a B grade for his overall attack grade and a B+ for his overall defense grade. And that concludes the content for this review of Mayhem. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback, so please do feel free to jump down to the comment section, leave me a note. I try to read and respond as much as possible. If you did enjoy the video, please do feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel and all of that sort of thing, but also definitely share the video around, because chances are, if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, it's also going to be useful to other people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope that I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!